right, welcome back to episode 3 of the Bullpen. Man, looking back to last week's episode, I don't know about you guys, I thought it was awesome, and going back and listening to it again, and really listening to the interview with Copeland, I thought it turned out really well. I really enjoyed listening to him talk about recruiting and how they go about recruiting. I thought it was super interesting, so I don't know if you guys had any first takeaways from it, but
My biggest thing is just I can't thank the guests enough for wanting to come on here and kind of express all of their views and opinions and answer the questions we may have to our viewers. Means a lot to me. I know Coach Copeland's a really busy guy, and for him to take the time out and come on here, and just like Tim Funkhauser, the head coach at Edwardsville, did in our first podcast, and I thought he illuminated on a ton of really, really good things just about his program and about high school baseball and what's going on down there at Edwardsville. And I know, at least myself, really excited about this week too, Gavin, and who we're having on. So that's my biggest thing is reaching out to these guests and being able to, get them onto the podcast. And that's asking a lot, wanting to get on a Zoom, get on a video call and take out, 30, 45 minutes out of their day. And so far, so good. And looking forward to what we have in store moving forward, too.
yeah, and I think, so we already tweeted it out that Owen Murphy's going to be on today, and I think that as we've talked, that's kind of something that we wanted to try and do, right? Like, have a high school coach on, have a college coach on, and then now we're having a current player on who's playing pro ball right now. And I think showing to start all different sides and angles of the game to try and give these players and families more information from each, segment. We have one of the better coaches on in Illinois, and Coach Funkhauser, and then Copeland at Northern Illinois, and then today Owen Murphy, who was a first-round draft pick. Like, you're hearing so many different perspectives. And I think that'll be super, super cool and beneficial for the players and for the parents. So I think that was kind of our goal, and then continuing to get more and more guests, like you always say, Drew, that are super impactful for anything Illinois baseball and the players and the parents. But I kind of want to move on to last week. We were down in Las Vegas for our leadership conference with the prep baseball company as a whole, not just Illinois and Wisconsin. It was our national leadership conference, and I think there's a lot of awesome takeaways from it for how we can kind of go into 2025 and be better as a company, be better as an Illinois staff, Wisconsin staff. But I kind of want to turn it over to you guys here, just to kind of initially kick off maybe your first thoughts and big takeaways from being down there.
Yeah, I'll hop in here, Gav. For me, I think the coolest thing, like, obviously it's a meeting of the minds down there, right? You have, all of the top execs in the company, all the state directors, and just to kind of hear, everybody's different perspectives and ideas on certain topics. I think it's really beneficial for me personally, and then, also just to see all of the things we have in the works as a company across the board, from scouting to content to tech, just how this company is, always evolving and not staying complacent and always looking for ways to improve. For me, it was the coolest thing down there.
And Tyler, I think you're hitting on something really interesting there with our company. Is if you look at us, from an outsider's perspective, you would never imagine or guess just all the different tentacles and all the different things that make this company go and allow us to tick, and everything that, it all starts with Sean Duncan. Him starting this in 2005 as a print magazine, me starting 10 years later in 2015 as the Illinois scouting director, and then to see, from the time I jumped in and there were a handful of states to how we used to do the leadership conference, and there was maybe, one or two people I didn't know at that conference, to what he has done to this company, the way it's expanded, the thoughtfulness of the expansion, and what all he has done to just continue to push the envelope. And it's what we preach to players all the time, is like, just continue to get better. Don't worry about your competitors or who's next to you. Like, you just try to get as good as you can personally get, and every day. And I feel like that is a message that starts at the top with our company. And it's something that he is always trying to push the envelope. He's always trying to stay ahead of the curve. He's always trying to invest back into what we do, to make us the industry standard and the industry leader. And that is our goal. That's what we're trying to do here in Illinois. And it is clear as day for me when you go to something like the leadership conference that he puts on. He brings everybody out to Vegas, and it's a giant think tank. And just to see what's behind this company and what's coming and where their mindset is, and hey, what's next in this landscape, because it is an ever evolving landscape that we're in. You look and see what's going on with college baseball, and just there's a lot of major changes coming to the college game, and that I respect so much out of our company and Sean, and leading the way with a guy like Steve Nielsen, who's also a large part of what's going on here. It's always really refreshing coming out of that leadership conference, knowing that, man, we are on the P's and Q's, and we are thinking about anything and everything that could do with this company and how to make us better. And I know that's long-winded, Gavin, but that always tends to stick with me coming out of these conferences, and then just to see the quality of people we have in our organization and get to see these guys once a year in Vegas, or maybe we see them at the future games where we're too busy at the future games to even say hi, got too much on our plate. We're able to sit down and, hey, Jared Carrier in New York, like, how do you do things? How do you handle, this event versus high school coverage, all of that. So it's hugely beneficial for myself, hopefully our staff, and it's just a really good time of year to get together with those guys, and can't thank Sean and what he's doing with this company enough.
I think the passion is what stands out the most to me, just like listening to Sean talk and all the other people. And I think like one of the things that makes Illinois and Wisconsin so successful and like good is just the passion that everyone here has, especially you, Drew. And it's easy to see like whether you had that on your own or not, or whether you got it from Sean just working under him for so long. That definitely is a driving factor here. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's just really cool to like be on Twitter and you're listening to Shooter Hunt talk about someone, and then all of a sudden he's standing there in front of you talking about scouting and how he goes about it. So it's just really cool. And just to see how much the company's grown in my 4 years here, it's pretty eye opening. And then like you look back on even on a bigger scope, like to when you started in 2015, because I remember being back in high school. I was a 2015 grad, and going to the top of the website and like clicking the states, and there's only like 5 of them, and now there's like every state. So it's just crazy to think about, and it's really cool to be a part of.
Exactly. And Gavin, I think it's just the proof is in the pudding. There's a lot of people that talk and have big ideas and big aspirations, but the proof is there. He's done it. You can see all the different states we have, and not even that, just the way we're doing our draft coverage, our JUCO coverage, everything. Like, we are trying to be the experts in amateur baseball, and that's our goal. And we're gonna continue to push it and try to get better every day to be that leader and what people want and need, and to do it as well as possible.
Yeah, and actually, Drew, you said something that made me spark up a thought, but I don't want to get too deep into the weeds with it. But just looking through during one of our scouting roundtables, looking at the MLB drafts over the past few years, and then our correlated national rankings, and how close we have been to the actual prep drafts is really cool to see. And I think that goes to show throughout the country how much we are getting out to these high school games, events, whatever it may be, and really knowing these players from the time that they're a freshman to their senior year. So I thought that was a really cool thing too that I kind of forgot about until right now.
And I think that's a good exercise that you bring up. And Shooter had us all do that, at the leadership conference, going through the national guys in the draft. But here in Illinois, if we want to talk about just being hyper-focused, is since doing this in 2015, I have now built up a tremendous amount of track record on where we had guys ranked when they were getting done with their senior year to then what they go on and do at the next level. And for me, It's always a good cross check. It's always just a good practice to, okay, like, who did I miss on? Who did I hit on? What could have been some of the factors for it? Was it a makeup issue? Was it a fit issue where they went at the next level? Or did we just, evaluate them improperly? So that is something that I don't think is ever ending. It's how you get better. I mean, shoot, I listen to this podcast to see what I can improve on, saying too much, or just providing better content. So trying to always get better, but looking back at those old rankings and seeing where we can improve, and what do I need to dream on, or what do I need to value more? Is in-game performance? Is it all about the ceiling? Is it all about the hit tool? Is it all about the run tool? Is it all about maybe the run and the hit tool combined? So, always learning. And like you said, like, that was a cool practice for you, Gavin, getting to see kind of where the national guys are. And I think that's just something that's how you improve, and we'll continue to do it here in Illinois to try to be as accurate as possible with the rankings, because you're never going to be perfect. You're always going to miss on guys, but is our process correct? That, I think, is the biggest thing for me. Is, are we looking at the right things? Are we evaluating the right things? Are we going about it the right way, unbiasedly, and slotting guys as best as humanly possible with the resources that we have? And I think we all try to strive to do that.
Absolutely. But looking at some of these commitments around the state this past week. So last week on the podcast, we had quite a few to talk through, and that was because we were going off of 2 weeks of commitments. But this week we only have last week's commitments to talk through. And just looking at the Division I commits this past week, we had 3. And Derek Holmes we mentioned last week, but he actually committed. It was at least tweeted out. We tweeted it out on Monday. So I'm just going to mention that again, that Derek Holmes committed to Mercyhurst University. And then Ethan Bass committed to Wake Forest. He flipped from Illinois to Wake Forest. And then Austin Musso committed to Arizona State. He was a future gamer in 2023 for Team Illinois, and now he's on Arizona State. And then looking at Division II, we had 3 commitments. Division III, we had 10 commitments. NAIA, we had 3 commitments. And then junior college, we had 10 commitments. So still a pretty big week of commitments last week. So be on the lookout this Friday for a recruiting roundup. It'll be from this week's commitments and last week's commitments. So should be a pretty big story looking through some of these commitments in the past couple weeks.
Yeah, and Gavin, it's not even really about getting in there on these guys, but you do a tremendous job planning out this podcast, the Bullpen, and being very detailed. And just one of the notes I see in here is we've had 120 state game commits. So that, to me, is a mind-blowing number. It was August 5th and 6th, or 6th and 7th this year when we ran it. So we're talking 3 months, and we've had 120 commits. And there are guys that come to that event committed. So this number is strictly guys that have committed after that event, that were uncommitted and now have committed after that event. And 26 of them have been Division I commitments. So that was just something I wanted to shout out. And then, alongside that, we get players have the opportunity to submit a commitment request when they do commit. And, that is one of the ways that we are alerted to a player committing to an Illinois, to a Wake Forest, to a Kansas, to an Arizona State. But when we get those commitment requests sent into us, we don't just take it blindly, and just go ahead and update somebody's profile. We try to verify that, right? So I kind of wanted to let you guys talk on that or expand on that if you wanted to, but just the fact that we then verify it through social media before we'll tweet anything out, or if a player will actually send us a personalized email, that's always probably the best way to just verify to us that, hey, I have committed, this is legitimate, and you guys are good to post it. Because that's something I feel, it's almost our duty, being Prep Baseball Illinois, is to post commitments. Players and coaches throughout this state, do an incredible job supporting us as a company, and players coming through, trusting in us to be a good resource for them, to be seen by these colleges, and they pay money to come to events and tournaments and whatever it may be. So when that time comes, when they finally make that commitment, and that's a huge day for a high school athlete to be able to say they committed to a college, all their hard work has paid off over the years, and it's a huge thing for the parents as well. I just feel like whether a guy has come to an event, come to 20 events, has come to a main event, is committing to a the national championship Division I program, or if they're committing to a smaller school, an NAIA. I played at NAIA, so I'm not trying to say that, or a JUCO or a D2, D3. Like, it's part of our job is to put out that commitment and to publicize it. And to me, that's a thank you we can give to the player. And our goal is to put out as much information on high school players as possible out there, and commitments is a huge part of that. So I don't know what else you guys want to say on that, but I believe that that's just something that we wanted to put out there.
And kind of like you said, Drew, we verify through their Twitter or their Instagram that they actually committed. And to doing so, like, I don't think we want to be posting a player's commitment just because they sent in a request on our website unless they have announced it themselves. I've always felt like it's not our place to make their announcement. Like, I want that to be something that they do themselves. So I know we try and make sure that they have posted that commitment prior to us tweeting anything out. So I think that's a huge thing that, like, players should probably try and realize, is that I don't want to just, we don't want to just put their commitment in their profile or tweet it out until they have announced that, because that is a huge honor and thing for them to get to do, and it just doesn't seem right for us to be the one announcing that.
That's a great point. And the other part of that comes with it is, if I'm a senior in high school and I'm getting recruited by 7 schools, and I've talked to 7 schools, I've gone on visits, the last thing that I want to do when I've made up my decision is, hey, I'm going to commit to this school, is to just put it out on Twitter and blast it out and not tell those other coaches. Part of the recruiting process is, I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy. There's a lot of growing up stages that take place throughout the process, and being a grown-up, being mature and handling the process correctly is a huge thing. And that's, calling every coach that has recruited you and thanking them and giving them the time of day and thanking them for the effort that they've put into you and the fact that they've thought highly enough of you as a person and a player to want you to play in their organization. I think that's a prerequisite. That is something that is a must for a player to do, is to reach out to those coaches that have recruited them and to just make them aware that, hey, thank you for your efforts in recruiting me at this time. I've chosen to commit to this school. And, it is a hard decision, and I think coaches understand that, and everybody wants to get a yes that's a college coach, right? They're recruiting you to get a yes. Hearing no is a punch in the gut, but, it's part of coaching. They know that, and what they respect is a high school athlete who is mature enough to say it to them and to call them, and for them to not hear through social media or to hear through a buddy that texts them like, oh, hey, I heard, such and such committed to here. It's because you never know where those coaches are going to be. It's a small world. It's a small baseball community, and you never want to burn any bridges. So don't start while you're a high schooler committing to a school. So sorry for the tangent there.
No, you're good. It was a lot of good information packed in there, so I always appreciate that, Drew. But so I don't want to get into this. We'll do this another episode, but we have had a lot of commitments from the future games across the nation, but also within Illinois as well. So we'll kind of get into that and maybe break that down here. I don't know, what do you guys think? A couple episodes, maybe next episode or something, and just see how that goes. But this week we have a big rankings update with the 25s. And this morning on our national call, Shooter Hunt mentioned that next week, because of Thanksgiving, we'll take a week off. The following week will be 26s, and then the week after that will be our 27s. But this week, focusing on this week, guys, like our 25 class, our 25 rankings, I don't know if anybody wants to take us through just briefly like what our process is, because it is a huge deal for us. We want to make sure we get it right, as we kind of mentioned before at the beginning of this podcast, like how we've always tried to do our best to be accurate and show what we have seen and let that reflect in the rankings. So I don't know if Drew or Pete or Def, like if you guys want to take us through that process so players and parents can kind of understand how we go about it.
Yeah, I think it's a huge topic that a lot of people are interested in. And it's a very hard topic. Doing the rankings is not a cut and dry, simple, pull up a spreadsheet and just, break down this number, and there you have your list. It's very difficult. And I think first and foremost, it's it's the hardest part of our job, in my opinion, is putting a number on a player, especially a high school player. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with that, and that's not lost on me. It, it's especially depending on the age of the athlete. So putting a number on somebody is something that we as a staff understand the importance of it and want to get it right, want to do it to the best of our ability. And whether we get something right or wrong, I think that's up for debate. But having the right guys in the rankings, and the right guys towards the top of the rankings, the right guys towards the middle of the rankings, the bottom of the rankings, I do feel like that's important. If you have a draft guy, if you have a guy that's getting seen by pro scouts and getting a lot of attention, and he's down at the bottom of our rankings, there's something wrong there. There's something that we missed on, or maybe the pro scout missed on, whether it's we have him down there for a reason and maybe the pro scout just doesn't know it for now. But I would say in general there's something off with that, and that to me is the biggest thing. No matter who we put at number 1 versus number 5, I think that's very arguable. And a lot of it can be the eye of the beholder. What do they value more as a baseball player? To me, left-handed arms are one of the highest commodities that you can have for a prospect. So if you have a highly talented left-handed arm, they're always going to be, pretty highly ranked for us. Especially if you're comparing a lefty versus a righty and all else is the same, we're going to lean towards that lefty. There's just fewer of them. They're more rare. So, we hold them to a higher regard or status. So, there's some overarching just conversations there to be had, Gavin, when you start talking about the rankings holistically. I think holistically with the rankings, the younger they are, the less players we try to rank. The younger they are, the more certain we want to be that, hey, these guys that we're putting in this, list of 20, we may not know if number 9 needs to be exactly number 9, or if he should be 15 or 12, or if he's really truly going to be better than that guy that's sitting there at number 10 right next to him. But I think the key is, hey, these top 20 guys that are young that we put in the rankings, it doesn't mean there's not other really good players that are outside of the rankings. It means these guys that are in the top 20, we feel really good about. We think from everything that we've seen, from the metrics that they have, because let's be honest, tools is a huge part of it. You have to have tools to play at a high level. You can't be an 8-2 runner and play in middle infield in the SEC. Like it just, it doesn't happen. It's like you're not going to get into an Ivy League school if you have under a 3.0 GPA. So there's just certain prerequisites that you have to have as a baseball player to be recruited by these high levels. If you're an over-the-top right-handed pitcher that throws 81 miles an hour and everything else is the same and the breaking ball is the same, you're not pitching at, Tennessee unless you just have the most Bugs Bunny changeup anybody's ever seen. So there are certain indicators, certain things you have to hit, and it kind of starts there. So, first thing we're looking at is the tools. I mean, 100%, first thing you look at when you see a prospect and you go to evaluate is the frame. That is where the evaluation process starts. You look at the frame and it all begins from there. And if we're talking, let's just say we're talking a position player, you're looking at the frame, you're taking in what their age is, and then you're looking at the maturity level of that frame. At least that, for me, that's where it starts. How mature is this guy? And then after that, you're trying to figure out the tools. First and foremost, how does he run? Bat speed, hit tool, defense, arm. The arm and defense starts in the pregame warm-up. It starts when they're stretching. It starts when they're playing catch. You're looking at actions. You're looking at the freeness in the arm. You're looking at how they present the glove to the target. You're looking at the pride they take in playing catch, just the pride they take in their profession. And then from there, you're kind of coloring in, okay, can they play the game? What kind of motor do they play with? The energy do they play with? What kind of IQ? How do they compete? Are they coachable? What kind of teammate? And we could go on and on and on and on. So kind of a tough question to give someone like me, Gavin, because I can take this in a million different directions, and I can go and I can talk. I think something that we can do here today is maybe talk through some players. And hey, this is why we like Cameron Appenzeller as the number one guy in the state. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any more holistic questions that you guys want to ask me, or maybe we have a conversation about before we get into specifics on players.
The numbers are not necessarily in order on present ability, because we want to be able to look back and have it still be correct, right? So it's not just looking at everyone for who they are at this very second. It's also projection. That's something that I didn't really understand even when I was looking at myself in the rankings, or comparing, you guys are the same exact velo, or maybe you throw harder, but it's well, his arm really, really works, and his body is really projectable, and we think in 3 years he's going to be here. So there's just a lot of different things that go into it, and there is a lot of different ways the rankings can go, but it's just about trying to find a good blend of projection and present ability, and that's what makes it so tough, honestly.
That's probably where I should have started, Peter, because I think that is a great point. I think the constant battle we fight with the rankings is the floor and ceiling debate that is constantly going on, that is ever evolving. A player's floor is always changing, and their ceiling could be dictated on a lot of things. So the floor to ceiling debate is a huge one. And I would say, for me, when we're looking at a younger player, the younger they are, the more we're going to bet on that ceiling. The more we're going to say, hey, this guy, young looking frame, and he has tools, and we think, he's going to continue to catch up as a player, and the tools are going to continue to tick up. And then as they get older, I would like to see that floor continue to get closer to that ceiling. If that floor continues to stay low and doesn't get closer to that ceiling, that's scary. That's an indicator, or I guess it just probably affects our confidence level of, is the player going to hit that ceiling that we've kind of set for them, that we think is could be where they could be in the game one day. And a lot of things that indicate that can be just IQ. What makes a player tick? Are they coachable? What kind of coaching are they getting? I think also kind of can impact a player's floor versus ceiling. Somebody that's been, fully training on baseball for the last 2 years, and they're a junior in high school, and they're at a certain floor, versus that guy that we see in Illinois. I think that's the beauty of the state we're in, is we see so many guys that maybe play multiple sports, maybe are from a smaller town, that have that same floor as that other junior I'm talking about, but they've gotten to that floor with way less coaching or just training in general. And if you want to take a bet on, okay, well, who am I going to take a chance on? These two guys are at the same floor right now, and one has been working their tail off, dedicating, their baseball focus the last 2 years to this, and this is their floor, versus somebody who hasn't even come close to tapping that potential that they potentially have.
Well, Drew, one of my favorite all-time floor versus ceiling debates is, we're actually having one of them on today, Owen Murphy versus Noah Schultz. That whole Owen's floor is so high that we can just bet on that kid every single day, whereas Noah, if he hits, he's gonna be Randy Johnson. And his floor is lower than Owen's, just because there's so much he's just so
The
lanky
polish.
and yeah, the
Yeah.
polish.
The polish of Owen Murphy. Yeah, keep going. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, and it's like Owen Murphy's the best player in the state right now. Like, hands down, player of the year. Every time you go out, or every time he goes out, he dominates. But, like, Noah Schultz can be Randy Johnson. So that was, like, a really tough one. And
I love it.
I always think back on that one.
No, I love it because you're right. That was something anybody that was in our office, in that year knows the discussions we're having. Anybody that was in the Illinois high school baseball scene of Owen Murphy's senior year, 2022, when he was our player of the year, and he was not only doing it on the mound, he was doing it with the bat as well. He was a very, very legit position player. Something I kind of want to ask him about here when we interview him. But if you had to win a game, it was Owen Murphy, and you couldn't argue it. He was an absolute stud. Nobody you would have trusted more. But he's a right-handed pitcher that's probably 6'1", 6'2", and nothing that's blowing you out of the water is saying this is going to be a guy that throws 102 miles an hour and is going to be such an outlier that his ceiling is so crazy. I think what you kind of think his ceiling is going to be, and I think you can picture Owen Murphy being a 1 through 3 starter in the big leagues. Like that's, I think he could be an ace if he hits and he's in the big leagues and he's pitching at 94, 96 with the elite command that he has, and he can spin 2 different breaking balls, and he has a changeup, and he's athletic, and he can hold a running game, and he doesn't lose velo, and he's the same guy out of the stretch and out of the windup, and he has the starter's makeup. Like his ceiling is still very, very high, and that's why he was number 2 in the state. But like you said, they don't make them like Noah Schultz. I don't know if I've ever seen a bigger outlier in the state come through here. As far as like just these guys don't grow on trees. 6'8", I'm 6'8", left-handed, maybe 6'7", could be 6'9" even. But like you said, like he was not the polished pitcher that Owen Murphy was. But we had Noah Schultz number 1. We had Noah Schultz number 1. We had Owen Murphy number 2. And I was texting Shooter. I would call Shooter and say, hey, like, I don't know how you want to do this here, but Owen Murphy is the dude. Like, he is the guy. His numbers are crazy. I know Noah Schultz he had some injury issues. Actually, not even like an injury. I think he had an illness his senior year that he battled. So then when he came back, he was kind of limited on pitches, and he didn't really throw more than maybe 3 innings his entire senior season. So, that also played into it as well. It's like, okay, our scout's going to see enough this spring to pay him what he could potentially warrant. And long story short, getting to what you're talking about, they're both going to have a ton of success in pro ball. But Noah Schultz has basically proven to be one of the biggest outliers in pro ball, and he's shot up the prospect lists when they rank the minor leaguers across all the different systems. You see Noah Schultz's name everywhere, and I know you will with Owen Murphy as well. He was tearing up pro ball before he just had an injury. But Pete, I think that's a great question, and that's the Owen Murphy Noah Schultz debate. It may not be solved, or even there may not be a conclusion for another 15, 20 years. Because I think both of those guys have a long, long track record ahead of them in pro ball. So I don't know if any of you guys want to jump on top of that.
Actually, something that's kind of goes along with this, we don't need to get down to all these guys here, but just like looking at, I think what you guys are talking about is a perfect example of a guy like Cam Appenzeller and a guy like Aiden Flynn and a guy like Brandon Shannon, where, speaking on Appenzeller, like Drew, you saw him down at the Battle for the Arch down there at St. Louis a couple of years ago. And then I think that was in 2023. And you kind of, his velo's not there. It's maybe a low 80s guy, but the 6'4", 180-pound frame, 170-pound frame is there. And he moves easy. It's super loose. It's super easy. And then we watch him and we watch his progression, and it continues to tick up and tick up and tick up and tick up. And he's now, low 90s, and he's, last time I checked, he was number 3 in the class overall. And same thing with Aiden Flynn. It's like he's a big projectable left-handed arm, who has plenty of upside. And I think looking at guys like that is a great example of you're betting on that frame, but also the way that they move and the ceiling that they have.
I think the biggest point you're making there, and one of the things that I think we look at the most, and we get emails on it a lot, and we talk to parents, and hey, my kid throws 88. Why is this guy that throws 86, ranked ahead of him? And I think Cameron Appenzeller is a perfect point. But so much of evaluating and scouting and being able to dream on guys, and what college coaches look for is how a player moves. The movement patterns are so important. I can't stress it enough. They're way more important than that number that's coming out of the radar gun that everybody wants to tweet out. They all want to, do a run and gun in the winter and, throw a ball into a net that's 10 feet away that's going to, not be anywhere near the strike zone and say they hit 92. But it took all their effort. It took 4 crow hops. Like, we are looking for the loose, easy, silky movers. Like we don't want stiff, we don't want effort. It is guys that can move easy, that can make everything that they do look easy. There's so many, like, when I think back of guys that have come through Illinois that have done that are the Cameron Appenzellers. I mean, there's not an easier mover in the state, maybe that I've seen come through in Illinois, in a long time since, like, seeing Cam Appenzeller. Gavin, I think in general, the rankings discussion is something that we can have over multiple weeks on this podcast. It is a deep and thorough topic, and one that a lot of parents and players and coaches obviously care about. We get questions on it, and I think if we are going to be, putting numbers on guys, it is something that we should explain, exactly how we do it and what we look for. And, I know we got into it a little bit today, but we can definitely dive deeper on further episodes and after we release some ranking updates as well. So now we welcome on our third guest since we've been revamping this podcast of the Bullpen with Owen Murphy, a 2022 grad out of Riverside Brookfield, pitcher, infielder in high school, was committed to Notre Dame. He was drafted and signed with the Atlanta Braves. He was a Team USA participant, a Super 60 participant, a future games participant. Long story short, he was a long time just Illinois high school player that came through a lot of our stuff here at Prep Baseball Report. We got to know Owen really well, just his talent, but then also just who he was as an individual. And I cannot tell you how thrilled I am to have you on here, Owen, and just really appreciate you taking the time and getting to check in on you, since you've left high school and you've had to make a lot of decisions with not going to Notre Dame and accepting the offer by the Braves. And, I know you also, had some surgery this year, so ups and downs. And if there's ever a guy that can handle it, it's going to be you. But first and foremost, just thanks for coming on here, and really looking forward to getting to talk to you and let you kind of share some insights to our audience as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me on. It means a lot, especially just to give back and everything. I gained so much from being in PBR and being able to go to all the events and everything. So I really appreciate you guys.
Well, that's great to hear. And, I do say, I take a ton of pride, and we take a ton of pride in helping the high school athlete, helping them be seen, get noticed by who they need to get noticed by. But you are, an exception to that rule. You're one of those guys that no matter if Prep Baseball Illinois existed or not, they were going to find you. Your numbers spoke for themselves. Anybody could have, been able to track down an Owen Murphy and just realize how special of a talent you were. And the Braves did notice that, and they paid you, and are taking a big chance on you. And maybe it's not a chance. Maybe it's that's probably the wrong way to put it. But man, you were a 2-time PBR Illinois player of the year, which has only been done a couple other times. And, a lot of that is due to your two-way success. When you did get to your senior year and all these pro scouts, were knocking on your door and talking to you, like, I guess I just will start there, and like, how big of a conversation was the two-way piece? With going to Notre Dame with a club taking you, was that a conversation, or talk us through that?
Yeah, from what I gathered from my meetings and talking to different scouts and such, it seemed that um, the two-way was definitely a possibility, but it was definitely tough being that I was 6 foot, a righty, uh, both on the mound and in the box. And I didn't really have like an established position in the field. Like I was a shortstop, like I was just an infielder. I could play wherever they wanted me to in the infield. So I think that was the toughest thing. It was kind of like I was a pitcher who hit and couldn't really find a position for me. So that was, I think, the like toughest thing about it was like, you know, when you talk about two ways, you see like Jack Caglione and um, uh, Shohei, like 6'4", 6'5" lefties who hit mamos, and I was a gap to gap shooter who would get the ball out of the yard quite a bit because I was able to just consistently hit the ball and with high exit velo, and I just don't think that that's what they're looking for in a guy who's going to two way. So definitely a gamer type, definitely the scrappy type. So you know, but I was very high on it. I wanted to prove everyone that I could do it and that people wanted me. But a lot of the feedback I got was, "Hey man, you're a first round arm, but a fifth round bat." So yeah,
And that's still pretty impressive there for you, Owen. Just a
yeah,
little tip
yeah.
of the
I'll
cap.
take it.
They're telling you you're a fifth round bat. And tough for you. I mean, you're playing a premium position there on the left side of the infield, whether you're playing shortstop. I know you probably dabble a little bit with third base. That's just a little different than a Caglione who's over there standing at first, or Shohei
Yeah,
who gets to
absolutely.
who gets to DH. I guess when he's not pitching, which um, we'll see what he does next year and how that all works out. But Peter, I want to turn it over to you because Owen, when you were coming up your junior, senior year, I don't know outside of like the scouts that were way in there on you, if there was anybody out there that saw you more than Peter Hammett. And the hard thing with seeing you was we can never really see you at home because of the facility setup and getting behind home plate. So
Yeah.
Peter tracked you down on the road a bunch. Pete, you may have a couple questions, so I'm just going to turn it over.
Yeah, thanks, Drew. No, I want to reminiscing a little bit because I used to be in charge of the diamond notes we would do. I remember having the talk like it's just going to be Owen Murphy every week. We gotta start giving it to other people because there was like a stretch where he won like I forget maybe two in a row,
You're
and we were
talking
just
for the
like
player of the week?
yeah for the player of the
Yeah.
week we're like man this is not going to be very fair if we just keep giving it to Owen because like his stats were like good enough to win it every single week. I just thought that was funny, but no, no, it's good to have you on, man. Good to hear you're doing well. Yeah, I saw you a ton. Your senior year mostly, and my first question, like one of the things that I noticed early on about you is that it didn't matter who you were pitching against. It could have been the number one team in the state or a 1A school. You were dotting and you were changing speeds, and nothing ever wavered in your game plan, the way you attacked hitters. So basically, who installed that level of like maturity in you, and how hard was it for you to not just let fastballs rip in front of like 30 plus pro scouts? Because every time I was there was a ton of pro guys there, obviously because you're a high level, first round arm. It's really easy because I was a former pitcher too. When you see the guns go up, you just want to let it rip. How like so basically, who installed that maturity in you? And yeah, how hard was it not to just let it rip the whole time?
Yeah, I think that I got a lot of that from the travel org that I played for. Like Rake City, Team DeMarini, like those guys, all we cared about was getting out in the field and winning, and that was it. So from my pitching coach Ryan Crowley to the guy who runs the org right now, Pete Flores, and to another guy Jared Kutnick, who's not in the org anymore, but was a big part of my development. Uh, and also Dan Brewer, who's with the Sparks North now. Like those guys, all they cared about was competing and winning. It wasn't about like lighting up the radar guns, and that's why I said earlier, like I'm a scrappy guy, and I know that I can just go out and play, and I just win. Versus I don't go to an event and maybe stand out as much as some other guys might, just because of my size and the numbers that I put up and such. So when I would go out into games, and when I got later in my career, when I started to just like light some stuff up and kind of surprise myself with velos on the mound and everything, like the mentality didn't go straight to like, holy crap, like I want to light up this gun today. It was more so like, I've got a game to win. I've got a whole team who's relying on me on the mound to put us in a position to win this game, and that's all I care about. And especially with like all the scouts and stuff watching, like to me, it's like that's what matters the most. And RJ Fergus with the with hitters also just he said something that just has stuck with me forever. And I know it's very funny because in this day and age, like the W just it's kind of overlooked and people don't really care about it as much. But I think because I was kind of taught through such an old school mentality, like I just look at the W, like that's all I care about. I could care less about where my ERA is. I could care less about my FIP. I could care less about anything but that win. Like if I am putting my team in the best position to win, that's all that matters. So yeah, all those guys helped me out so much with that, and it was just repeated day in and day out. So
Well, and I think that that leads to special players when you have guys with that mentality, like yourself, that also have that ability. Because you have the full package, and that's kind of what we've noticed since you came through high school. How much of that was you also played football,
mhm.
so the two sport thing we talk about it a lot here, just on our podcast, and when we evaluate players is just the the guys that play multiple sports but have the same floor as somebody that's just been focused on baseball. Like we're gonna bet on that multi-sport guy. And I also just think, man, playing football, you got to go through 2 days in the summer. You're navigating that with baseball, and then you're a quarterback, so you're also having to figure out, okay, how many throws can my arm make, and then you're competing on the gridiron, and you're taking hits, and you're playing with a team, and I like how huge was that for you?
Oh, so huge. Like it's something that I miss now. Like I wish that like there's multiple things that I try to go out and do. Of course, like before I had surgery, like I would golf all the time because it was just something else to do. And uh like just finding other things to do that like get your mind and your body doing something a little bit different is so important. And I mean my I'm so lucky to have the parents that I had. Like they echoed it all throughout high school, all throughout everything. Like just do as much as you can. Like if you love football, keep playing football. And that was where I was at. It didn't matter. As soon as I committed to Notre Dame, people thought, "Oh, he's going to stop playing football." Like absolutely not. Like that's not the reason. My senior year, the only reason I didn't play football is because I missed 4 weeks. So I missed 4 games, and I didn't want to come back and take away a starting role from a kid who has been working his ass off and with the team for that long. It was a time commitment thing. Though people think that I took it off because I didn't want to get injured. And I was like, no, that's not the goal. And so I was the water boy for the rest of the year, and I was the best fucking water boy in Illinois. So like, you know,
No
I
matter what role you have, you
no
dominate that
matter
role.
what. Damn
Heck
right.
yeah.
So, but like it is so important, and like to any kid, like ever who's going through the process and everything, like it is so important to like play two sports, basketball, baseball, like football, baseball, play three, do all three, do everything you can. Like it is so important because I learned so much from my football staff and my football teammates that goes beyond the game of football and goes beyond the game of baseball. So like if it's not just for the physical stuff, it's for the mental stuff, and it's for the bonds that you'll take into the rest of your life. Like I couldn't have made a better decision by playing football during high school.
Well, that's great to hear, and I think more people need to hear that. And if you're talented enough to do it, and you can manage the time, you only get one chance to do it in your life. So, that's a big thing for me is never looking back and regretting that. And I love to hear it out of you. And I'm sitting here thinking, you tell me you missed 4 weeks of the fall. So then you get back there and you're just water boying. But is that because you were playing Team USA? Is that what happened? Is that the part that forced you to? Because otherwise, were you playing? Because you go to USA trials. You've got to make actually Team USA. So if you don't make trials, are you back and playing?
Yeah, that was my decision. I was like, I mean, if I don't make the team, then I'll only miss a week. But if I make the team, I'm missing 3. And then on top of that, I had another event later on, and then I had the Baseball Factory All American. And so I was like, there's so many things going on where like I don't think that I can miss these games because this is about my future. And as much as I was like in the past, I have missed events. So, for example, back when the Wilson premiere was a thing,
Yeah.
uh, I think it was my freshman year of high school. We had a game on Friday. I played in that game, and then I we got a flight the next morning, flew out to Arizona, played in Arizona for those 2 days, and our team made the playoffs and was running deep. But I said, sorry, I gotta leave. And we had the semifinals on Monday, but I was like, I got to be back in football practice. I'm sorry. And my coach, Jared Kutnick, was extremely upset with me. But I left and I went to football practice, and we ended up winning the whole thing. And it was like, like there's times where I was like, oh man, like that stinks. Like I missed it, but that was my commitment. Football was my commitment. Baseball was on the side. So like, you know, uh, like
There's
that
always
was my commitment in the
sacrifices.
moment. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And my commitment in the moment was like, I want to play for Team USA. I want to go and do these baseball factory all American things. I want to take every opportunity that's given to me because of what I generated this past summer. And I mean, my football coaches totally got it. They were confused as to why I was still playing after I committed to Notre Dame, but we have such a tight bond. Still to this day, we still talk. So like, I mean, it's like very lucky to have the people that I did in my life to make the decisions that I did because like at the end of the day, like I'm pretty happy with all of that and just kind of nuts how it all turned out.
Well, and that support staff that you had in high school, your parents, it sounds like they were instrumental for you and the high school coaches, but like the need for that doesn't go away after you get drafted. If
Hmm.
anything, it needs to be even stronger. Um, so I mean, how tough has that been, or has it been easy? Because the support staff's always been who it's been. It's stayed the same. Have you had to shrink your surroundings? Or what kind of changes have you had to make, if any?
I mean, the support staff has probably stayed mostly the same. Like I'm talking to the same people that I would have in high school. I wasn't really one for like a huge group. I just am about close knit people that are just always there for you. So that's who I still talk to and everything. And of course, it grows a little bit and shrinks a little bit like throughout you going like throughout life and throughout everything. Like everything kind of shaves and adds and such. So I think that like um, there's some people that I've met in the Braves org. Uh, who I'm very close with now, and I would call them one of my support staff, and I would hope that they would call me the same. So, like, and then there's some people that I don't talk to anymore from high school because, like, it's just how it is. But yeah, I mean, I think that if you're doing the right things, like, you got to keep up with the support staff from high school because, I mean, it's the reason why you're in the position you are, and that's it. So.
I want to turn this over to Gavin or Tyler. I know you guys have a list of questions yourself as well, so feel free, either one of you.
Yeah, Owen, I think one thing that I notice myself going out to games and looking at pitchers specifically before the game is that they kind of warm up and they're kind of lazy about it. They're talking to other players, or they're having fun and not maybe focusing on what the task at hand is. So my question for you is, how would you go into a game and prepare mentally and physically for a start?
Yeah. Are you talking about right now or like during high school?
You can do both. Maybe right now would be good too, but
As you were
Yeah, yeah,
asking the question, Gavin, I was almost curious, like, what has changed, from
yeah,
high
yeah,
school
yeah,
to maybe now. So,
yeah. So definitely one thing that's changed is so in high school it was a lot about like making sure that I felt good, like physically, as in like uh, I felt strong and ready. I worked with my strength trainer Brock Cruz, and he would help me out with a ton of stuff. Like we would be doing what's called like a potentiator lift day like of throw. So I would be lifting weights like for 15 minutes, like just getting everything feeling good because that's what felt good for me. And then when I would get to the park, I had the same routine every time I throw. Like I had a dynamic warm up, and then I had a J band routine, and then I would play long toss the same way every single time, and then every bullpen was the same. So just that consistency made me always feel good, and everything, and just the work that I did off the field with Brock and uh, and other staff, like it just helped me a ton. So, and basically all I did when I came to pro ball was just build off of that, because the length of the season, you're making way more starts than I ever had in my life, probably double, if not a little bit more than that, the amount of starts that I had before in a single season. So, kind of like figuring out that and figuring out like a definitive arm care routine and what works for me and what doesn't. Like it's a lot of like here and there and what have you. So like there's a couple stuff added on from before, and then there's a couple things taken away from my high school routine that I don't do anymore. But a lot of it has stayed pretty similar, because I felt so confident in the routine in high school. And so yeah,
and you were that detailed and consistent with it in high school,
yeah,
where it was the same thing every day.
same thing. Yep,
Okay.
and uh, no reps taken off. I felt that I was cheating myself if I was. So if I was doing 10 of like the quad pulls during my warm up, like I did 10 quad pulls every single time. It didn't matter how I was feeling or whatever. Because like as you go on throughout the season, your body like feels probably a lot worse. Your arm doesn't feel as great. But if I stayed consistent, I knew that I could always trust it. And if I can trust it, then it doesn't matter. And I can go out there and do the same thing every single time because I trusted my routine and how it's made me feel, and I'm trusting that I'm doing something. Whereas like I think some other guys don't trust their routines as much because they're not as consistent with maybe pushing themselves to that like level of consistency, if that makes any sense. So like
Absolutely.
yeah. But
You have to have a lot of self-discipline. You have to be motivated, and that's impressive to hear that your mindset is no matter how I'm feeling, like this is what's getting done. I'm getting it done, and you're a guy that I've always I imagine your mindset in pro ball, or even ever since you were in high school, is just you're kind of on a mission. um,
yeah,
and it
yeah.
seems like you're on a mission to be as good of a baseball player as you can be, and it sounds like you have a very well-rounded perspective of that, to make sure your personal life is where it needs to be, to make sure you're doing what you need to do off the field. And then on the field, like, hey, my most important thing here is not to worry about the number, it's to compete. And if I'm doing all these things, then, good things are going to happen for me. And it's evident. Anybody can see that. And I think more young players, and one of the great reasons and just one of the great things with you being on here is that you can hopefully continue to spread this wisdom, because it's one thing to hear it from a high school coach, it's one thing to hear it from a college coach, a pro scout, but man, you've lived it. You're what, are you 21 right now?
Yeah, 21.
So, I mean, you're just fresh out of high school. You're young. You're mature beyond your years. You always have been, and it's really refreshing just to have this conversation. So, Gavin, if you have any
Yeah.
follow-ups, or if Tyler,
Yeah, Owen, I've got one more thing before I switch it over to Tyler that kind of goes off that. What do you feel like has been the most challenging part going into pro ball from being a high school kid straight to the Braves organization?
I would definitely say that the most difficult part of the transition was like, as funny as it sounds, failing. So, come from high school where I would mow guys down, and even like when I'd go to the circuits and such, like when I played, like I would be expecting myself to strike out almost everyone. Though I was facing guys like Elijah Green and Drew Jones, like it didn't matter. I was going in there to embarrass them. And when you get to pro ball and you make your first start, you're like, holy crap, these guys are good. Like it is night and day. It's not even close to the best players in high school baseball. Like, and that was definitely something that I had to deal with my first year. Like, I had a stretch where I think I gave up like 6 or 7 homers and, or like a homer every game for 6 to 7 straight starts. And that was the most frustrating thing. I had a couple starts like where I was pulled in the first inning because you just get shelled, and it is like it was so frustrating for me to like deal with that because I mean I love winning, but I hate hate losing so much more than I love winning. So that was definitely like a kick to the groin and like, okay, we got to figure this thing out. And thank goodness I had the support system I had and everything, uh, and that instilled consistency from my high school days, where it was like, no matter what happens that day, that start, like you have another day. Like it's just like you just have to keep doing your thing and keep trusting the process and get there and make sure you're checking on everything. Like Drew said, like social life, how I'm doing. Like I'm always making sure that everything look good? Like, am I okay with this? Like, there's something that feels weird. Okay, well, I need to ask someone about that and target that. So, uh, definitely, though it was the hardest thing to transition to, it was the best thing that has happened to me so far in my career. So,
well, you finally hit a humbling moment. It sounds like.
yeah,
Uh, I'm sitting here listening to you answer that, and I'm thinking, in those games where you gave up a home run in 6 to 7 straight starts or outings, whatever it may have been, was it certain pitches that got you in trouble? Was it locations? Was it count? Was there any correlation, or it was just, hey, these guys got me. I made one mistake and they got me.
it was a lot of the time I made one mistake, and that was the defining moment. So, lots of a lot of like middling counts, like 1-2, 2-1. Not a I don't walk too many guys. I pride myself on that. So not a lot of 3-0 counts that are getting taken 7,000 feet, but lots of 0-0 counts where guys are ambushing what they know is my
Yep.
best pitch, and that's my fastball. So and also a lot of like uh, where I was at in terms of like how do I pitch. Like I had learned how to pitch to high school guys, but I hadn't learned how to pitch to professionals, and that is a leap in itself that took me a year to figure out. So
And
yeah,
by that, you're talking sequencing, and you're talking
yep,
setting up hitters,
yep,
and maybe learning what their strengths are, what they like to hit, and staying away
yep,
from that. Okay.
yep,
All right.
absolutely.
Tyler, I'll let you get in here.
Yeah, I'm gonna hop in here. I do have a question, but first, I know we touched on football, and from what I gather, you're really humble. So I'm sure you would never mention this, but I was doing some digging on you, and I stumbled across your middle school football highlights. And now I don't know what the copyright laws are. If we're able to, I hope we can put like just a few plays on the YouTube when we post this, but there's like a 3 play sequence where those poor kids, like, you were a bully out there. Like, you're dropping like a 40-yard dime, and then the very next play, you're blocking a field goal. Like,
Yeah,
I was just, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, those poor kids are probably just sitting in like seventh period algebra, and they're like, "Oh, great, I got to go play Owen Murphy on the football field after this." So just wanted to throw that out there because it was a fun watch for sure. But Owen, at the 2019 Future Games, you came and pitched for Team Illinois. You were sitting just 84 to 87 with your fastball. Fast forward 7 months later, you come to a winter event and you're 89 to 92. So, what happened for you in that 2019-2020 winter that really just kind of, had your fastball take off? Was it something as simple as just, hey, I finally like matured physically, or was it something else?
I think it was a mixture of maturing physically and deciding like that I needed a little bit more in the weight room, and I needed to take that a little bit more seriously. Like I had taken that pretty seriously, but there was some stuff that I stayed away from because I was worried I wasn't old enough for it yet. And as soon as like, I think futures games, yeah, I was 15, and I was like, just a little bit scrawny, like very, I think I was like buck 60 or something like that. And I was just, kind of like teetering on like, should I start like really getting into it? And then all our travel coaches, Jared Kutnick, Pete Flores, just absolutely pushed like eat a ton. Like we're getting in the weight room 3 to 4 times a week. We're gonna push weight. We're gonna feel good about it. We're gonna get sore. Like it's gonna suck, but it's gonna be for the better. And I was 1,000% bought in. And I mean, I ate so much food that that off season and everything. And like also on top of that too, I think I attribute a lot of my success the with the pitching side of it to hitting because I was so focused on hitting. That's all I cared about because I'm trying to prove everyone wrong. So the pitching just kind of developed in itself, and like I was just allowed. And my pitching coach was fantastic, Ryan Crowley, because he didn't put any of the pressure on me. He was just like, "Who gives a shit how hard you throw? Like just like as long as you're playing the game and winning, it doesn't matter." So from that mindset, like it helped me out so much. And then I'd get into the events and be like, I mean, I care about that I'm hitting in like 50 minutes. Like that's what I care about putting on a show for. But then I go out on the mound and I feel good and feel loose and throwing, and everything's just working in unison and feeling great, and turn around and I surprise myself. Like I think I remember at that event, uh, my coach Kutnick was like saying something to a scout, and he was like worried about me and stuff, and he was like, "Yeah, he'll light it up. Like he'll like just watch." And then I just turn around and throw like 92, and he was like, because I had never done that in any of our stuff, like in travel ball facilities and everything, in Rake City's facilities. So it was kind of a funny moment, and I think too, like it helps with like I always feel like I throw a bit harder when I've got that like little bit of edge or adrenaline. So throwing at an event, I'm like I've like you guys are all lining the backstop, so I'm like, give me that, I want that. But when I'm throwing a bullpen at Rake City, it's not about that. It's about working what I need to work on. So, but yeah, it's it's a little bit of insight into that.
Well, I'll speak for the group. I always love it when, whether it's you or somebody else, comes to one of our events and has a moment like that. You always want them to come to one of our events and to show out, like to show as best as they can show, and to hear that you popped a 92 and hadn't really shown that before. Um, I, so, along with being a two-way guy, we mentioned this before the call a little bit, but you were a guy as a freshman that we had gotten word of, hey, he's going to be a really good arm. So we invited you as a pitcher to our underclass invitational. You came as a pitcher, and then you also got an invite to the future games, like Tyler was mentioning there, as an underclassman. But like both of those events, you did not participate as a position guy, and it's something we deal with, and I'm dealing with it right now. We send out invites to our all-state, and we have a certain amount of field time at the facility. We want to get as many players into the event as possible. We can't have a whole bunch of two-way guys, so we have to make some hard decisions. But you were a guy that was left off that list, and I never, ever heard a peep from you about it, and we're getting on the call here before we go live, and you remembered it. You certainly remembered it, and I think it's just a credit to you and just speaks volumes that, never did I hear one peep about, hey, like, what the heck, I can't come as a position player, blah, blah, blah. Like, hear you talking behind our back. And maybe you were, but regardless, it sounds like you used it as fuel. And a couple years later, you get selected to Team USA, not just as a pitcher, but as a position player as well. Like, is there anything with the two-way, whether the motivation from us, not getting selected to play in these events as a position guy, or just your own personal motivation? Like, did that help? Did you use it? Were you always trying to prove people wrong just with the two-way factor?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of my career is like I'm very like I get very emotional while watching the Last Dance documentary. I've watched it like 18 times it seems like. And the way that Jordan talks about how like there's times where I would like tell myself that I didn't like this guy just because he played for another team, and that's what motivated me enough to beat him. And like it's like riling me up right now talking about it. But like if like all my coaches are telling me like you're a pitcher, like just accept it. And I was being denied from being a two-way event and everything. But my parents raised me like you don't complain about those things. People make decisions. Like you guys made a decision to not let me in that way because that's what I had shown at the time. Okay, that's fine. Now I need to do some soul searching and figure that out and prove you wrong, and that's it. And then I like also I don't want to go and complain because I don't want a handout from you guys. I don't want you to just be like, "Oh, that's our bad." Like, here you go. Like, I guess we'll give you a two-way, though maybe this kid deserved it more. So like I've always felt that like you'll earn the opportunities through the work that you put in. And I mean, like as you work more, you get luckier. And I got to a point where I just worked so much and did so much stuff that I got lucky enough to be seen. And that was it. And that was the whole goal. And yeah, like every day, like as much as Crowell will be laughing when he hears this, but like every day he would tell me like just give it up, and I would be so mad at him. I would like before the draft too. He was like telling me this stuff like you're not going to be a hitter anymore, and I would get so upset, and then I'd go out and hit like in 5 games I'd hit 4 homers because I was just so upset with Crowell.
Sounds like he knew how to get the most out of you.
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure,
he knew
they
how to
definitely
push your
knew.
buttons. Yeah.
1000%. So
Well, I know for me, I don't forget things like that. When there is a guy as talented as Owen Murphy, and I remember making a decision, and then you come in as a pitcher, and then, hey, 4 years later, like, look, he's on Team USA as a two-way, and you could easily rub it in my face, and I wouldn't blame you if you did. And I think for me, it's been a learning experience. It's like, hey, these guys are still young. Like, let's not pigeonhole guys too early. And just in general, like something with you and your success and Sean Duncan, one of his biggest sweet tooths with pitchers are guys that are shortstops that pitch. And I love that about you because you're athletic. And like, do you feel like that has been a huge plus for you with just being a strike thrower, maybe handling yourself on the mound? Like, what are benefits that maybe you see yourself over that guy that's always been that PO that's been doing the weighted balls and all this stuff when you've just been an athlete?
yeah, I mean, I think that like describes my game is like you could give me a ball right now. Well, probably not right now, but if I was healthy, you give me a ball and I could get out on the mound and like I could get up cold from the bench and feel good. Whereas like maybe a guy who struggles with that and didn't get lucky like I did with the athletic ability that I did, probably struggles with that and needs a little bit more to get himself going. So like I don't know. Like I've always felt that like oh, and also like if I'm on the mound and something doesn't feel right, like it's easy for me to just be like, "Oh, I can make this change." Like I'm not thinking about too much, and the times where I do think about a lot are the times where I don't succeed. So, if I just go out on the mound with one goal in mind and if that's about like usually it's about I want to get this guy out. How do I get this guy out based off of the research that I did on him before the game and on this lineup and how their organization hits and such like that. So like there's that difference where I'm not really worried about like getting into this position and then landing in this position and getting my arm here like as the foot lands and blah blah blah. Like I don't worry about that in game. I don't worry about trying to create things in game. I think it's more so I just let them happen. And I'm lucky enough to be able to do that because I'm athletic. So I would say that like being athletic is a big part of my game, and it's a reason why I will like I continue to have success and everything. So
Well, and that's what we look for as scouts, guys that are athletes that can make those adjustments like you're talking about, that have the aptitude, that have kind of a feel for their body and sequencing and things like that. I want to turn it over to the group if they have any other questions because I have a couple that I want to end on. I can't thank you enough. You've been so grateful with your time. So
yeah,
if you need to
absolutely.
go, just cut us off. But I've really enjoyed the conversation, the reminiscing, and I'm gonna just ask you, Pete. Go ahead, get in here, and after that, I've got a few things to end with.
Hmm.
Yeah. Actually, you were talking about that 92 you hit. That was on my mound, and that was like my second event I was ever at. So
Oh, let's
that was a
go.
that was a pretty cool introduction.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
but no, I think I already know the answer to this question. But if you could only keep one, your competitiveness or your work ethic, which would you keep?
I think that my competitiveness drives my work ethic, so I keep my competitiveness for sure.
Yeah, saw that one coming.
Yeah.
Drew, I got one more too. I want to ask him.
Yeah.
So maybe after you got drafted, I guess, was there ever like a call or text that you got from maybe like a player in the Braves org or some pro player on another team? Was there someone that you got a text or call from that like surprised you that they knew who you were? Like an example would be like Acuna texting you or something.
Yeah, no, I didn't get anything like that. I guess I wasn't known enough, but but I've been lucky enough to be able to talk to a couple of the big league guys during spring training and such. Like the the lucky thing about how our facility's set up is our weight room is connected to their weight room, and so I'll see Spencer Strider reverse lunging 425 pounds as I'm doing my workout. So I've had the opportunity to talk to him, Pierce Johnson, and a couple other players, which has been like just, and Sean Murphy too, like worlds ahead of like just so cool. Like I just love like hearing them talk about their process and everything. Like lucky enough, the Braves set up a meeting. Me and Strider, we sat there and talked for like an hour and 15 minutes about how we both prepare for games and everything. And it was just so eye opening. And I'm just so lucky to have had that conversation with him. And, but yeah, no, he gave me his phone number, but I will not text it until I'm his teammate. So,
There you go.
yeah.
There you go. Well, I want to bring it back to the high school roots, and we mentioned a couple times you had gaudy stats and all that. Was there? We actually, before you got on, we were looking through the rankings, and that 2022 class that you were in featured a ton of high level guys. Noah Schultz, yourself, Brendan Summerhill, who's getting a ton of love at Arizona
Yeah.
right now,
Yeah.
Ashton
He's,
Izzy,
yep.
kind of tearing up pro ball right now. You got Luke Adams, is a top 10
Yeah.
prospect with the
Yes.
Brewers. Like it's turned out to be a phenomenal class coming out of Illinois, and even like a Daniel Pasella was in that class who put up huge
Hmm.
numbers at Illinois State last year. And if he goes off again, I could see him being a high pick. But is there a guy that you remember from high school that you did struggle with? I want to start with a hitter. So like when you were pitching, was there a hitter that you're like, dang, I like this guy? And then also flip it. Like, was there a pitcher that you thought was lights out?
Yeah. I'm trying to think like, because I only the one guy in that list that I got to face during an actual like high school game was Summerhill at
Okay.
when we played them in the I forget
He
one of
was
the
at that
regionals
game.
I think.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
original at Whitney Young.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he the game before that, he the night before that we were watching them and he like flicked a ball over their 300-foot like just super short porch out and left and like it wall scraper. And when he was facing me in his, I think it was the second at bat, he because I struck him out in the first at bat, and then the second at bat, I threw a high and away fastball, and he clipped it like straight up in the air to left, and I was like, "Is the same thing about to happen right now?" There's no way, because he was the one guy who I was like, "I don't care, I'm going to put all my energy into this at bat."
Yeah.
And I got caught at the warning track, and I was like, "Oh, sigh of relief! Like, thank goodness." I don't think I faced them again after that because they didn't get back through the order. But man, I was like, "Oh goodness, that was awesome." So facing him was very fun for those two at bats that I got to
Yeah.
face him. And I mean, honestly, just our 22 like class, like a lot of guys we played against were awesome. And I mean, a lot of guys on my team, we had every single dude on my 22 class Rake City team commit to college and played past high school, which was like one of the first times it's been done for our travel org, which was awesome. So a ton of guys like Esteban Moreno, uh, who I got to face on the daily basis. And then also, not a kid in my class, but just very funny because I just always remember this from like facing them in house and everything because I've had the most at bats against them and faced them the most. But Brady Lauk, a kid in the 2023 class, God, he had my number in the box. Always, he always had my number, and to this day, I will still be upset about it because he always did. But that kid's such a good kid too, and like he's doing great stuff at Florida State, and I'm excited for him. And of course, not my class, but just one kid that always had my number. But I never got the pleasure to face No Schultz in games, so I can't speak on that. He was the one guy that I always wanted to face. So,
That would have been a fun
but
matchup there.
absolutely,
Yeah. But just thinking back to Brady Lauk, I mean, he was a tough at bat for a lot of guys. But I'll tell you what, Owen, like he's cut out of the same cloth as you are from a competitive standpoint, and he did it two-way as well. Like he led Plainfield East to a state title when they went into
yes,
the playoffs under 500, and then it was just the Brady Lauk show for about 3 weeks there.
yeah,
Because he was a guy that never wowed, like with the velo, body type wise, 5'10", 5'11". He's not going to wow you, but the guy dominated. And I'd be curious if it was the slider or that fastball that was just hard to pick up that you had trouble with. But
it was a
both were really
slider.
good. Yeah.
It was a slider. Oh my God, it would make me so upset. He'd like back foot a slider to me, and I'd look like a just a dumbass. It'd be so bad.
Well, he was getting innings early on at Florida State. Like, I'm very, very curious to see what happens to him because I know at Florida State right now too they have I think the last name's Arnold, but another like high level left-hander in that
hmm
rotation with them. Um, Great stuff all around, guys. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, I gotta hop in
All
here.
right.
Owen, so I moved to Brookfield, summer of 2022 when you got drafted. So unfortunately, never got to see you pitch in high school, which stinks for me. But I gotta know, are there some go-to places to eat in like Brookfield or Riverside that like maybe I don't know about yet?
Have you been to Tony's?
No. Oh wait, yes I have. Yes I have.
Yeah. Have you been to the Tony's breakfast place?
Yes, absolutely.
That was our spot. Oh, also off Broadway in Wing
Wing night?
Wednesday. Wing
Yes,
Wednesday.
sir.
Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
this was like, oh man, I'm so happy I get to talk about this. So it's been a tradition, and I don't know if it's still upstanding. I gotta ask some guys. Well, I don't know if I know any kids who are on the baseball team now at RB, but so forever, like as soon as I made the team as a freshman, they're like Wing Wednesdays start as soon as like tryouts are done, and every single Wednesday we would go to off Broadway and get half off wings, and we'd all sit there like 20 of us and just down some wings. And the tradition has stand uh, every year, and then in December when we all get back home, the one team that I was on for my senior year, we were such a close knit group that, and I mean, we would consistently go to off Broadway for wings on Wednesdays. Like even once the season was over, like we would still go. And when we all get back home, we're all in town. Last year we did it, a little one in January. We did a Wing Wednesday, and we'll probably do one again this year. But off Broadway and Tony's, those were our go-to. Tony's was our football spot. So
Well, that fires me up. I'm glad I'm not missing out on anything out here. So, no, I'm glad you mentioned off Broadway because I mean it's unbeatable. It's like
no,
the
and
best
their wings
place in
are
the world
so
on a Wednesday.
good.
Yeah,
They're really
it's
good.
and you would never expect it either because like it's just like a little almost hole in the wall bar, but it's no, that's awesome. Great to hear
Yeah,
that.
awesome.
Oh, and we got a couple golfers here, me and Drew, and I guess Tyler will call himself a golfer. What's the handicap looking like?
Uh, Before I got injured, I was at like a 14 or something like that. So I progressed pretty quickly. I was happy with myself, but I mean, I still have rounds where oof, it was bad, but but
So
was
when
figuring
did
it
you
out.
start golfing? Because you said you progressed quickly.
I started golfing in spring training of 2023. So it'll it was like a year. I was like golfing for about a year and a couple months when I got injured. So, but oh my gosh, when I started out, it was so bad. But
Yeah.
I was like, and this is funny. I wanted to beat my dad so bad because he was okay at golf, and I just wanted to beat him. So I kept going, though I just was so bad.
You found
But
your motivation though. You found
yeah,
that, yeah. You created something that's gonna, kind of get that work ethic going, and yeah, it'll force you to,
exactly.
yeah, practice. I
But
love
I'm
that.
a great scramble partner. But if I'm on my own, like it can blow up at any time.
What's your biggest strength on the course? If you're a great scramble, can you pump it out there off the tee, or are you on the
N-
greens making putts? Like, what do you got, or are
I'm
you just a
I'm
vibes
just
guy?
I'm consistently there. I'm just
Okay,
there. Like again, on the mound, like I don't throw 100, but I'm consistently there.
yeah, that's
So
a
I'm
recipe for
consistently there.
success in golf.
Yep, and I can
Uh-huh.
stick it, and I putt pretty well. So, but I will yardages and everything. Like I'd rather not try to push my luck because I'll just slice it into oblivion.
I
So,
gotcha.
oh
Well, it's
yes,
a humbling game. If you want to
yeah,
learn how to get
thousand
humbled in a
percent.
hurry, pick up golf. That's for sure. Or just go into pro ball, I guess.
Yeah.
But do you have one memory from high school that sticks out to you, baseball wise, playoff game? You guys had a really good team your senior year. We had you ranked. Obviously, anytime you took the ball, you had a chance to beat anybody in the state. But was there anything that sticks out to you that you just want to shout out? Or I'm thinking more high school. Maybe it's
Yeah.
throwing in front of 100 scouts. I don't know.
Yeah, those games were fun and everything, and like I just enjoyed like the other guys around me being able to like be around that. Like some guys who weren't gonna play past high school and everything, like to just be involved in my process, like it was just so fun and everything. And like a lot of guys got looks on my teams, and a couple guys were played past high school because people would come out to our games and watch us and saw how scrappy and how well these guys played. But I think above all, my senior year was watching my brother from shortstop in our game before the regional championship. He dominated against I forget who, but I remember just watching him dominate and be so. I was just so proud of him and everything after the long season we had, and he was given the ball instead of me for that game, and I was just. And he just went out there and did his thing and enjoyed it. And he wasn't one who wanted to play baseball past high school and everything. And just seeing that, it was just such like a great family moment for me at least. Like I just it was something that I'll never forget.
It's awesome.
Um, but yeah, like all the other games with like high Ks and perfect games and blah blah blah. Like I whatever. Like those are
Yep.
fun, but it was just kind of me. But like those games where watching my brother, watching certain guys just play really well that were on our team and play like beyond their level. It was awesome. It was so fun to watch.
Well, good shout out for Wyatt Murphy out there.
Yeah.
Definitely remember Wyatt. So good stuff, Owen. I can't thank you enough. If I wasn't a big enough fan before this call, like I am beyond a fan of Owen Murphy. And I cannot wait to see kind of what you do and like the way you just continue to ascend and honestly, like the way you bounce back from this injury, because just listen to you talk, like you're gonna be better than ever. And I'm fired up for you. It's one of my favorite things here with like doing prep baseball Illinois is being able to follow these guys after high school. And to see who succeeds, to see what they do at the next level, to see who becomes, like the man that you think they might become. And it's been awesome talking to you. It's been awesome following you through your high school career and beyond. And even after you graduated and in the draft and stuff, I got a tremendous email from your parents. Like, I don't know, like just speaks to everything that we've come to know. And thank you again, Owen, and good luck crushing this rehab, and good luck with the Braves. You're in a tremendous organization, and man, go kill it for Illinois.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to represent. Thank you guys so much for having me on. This was a lot of fun.